So we like to open up everyone's eyes to all of the resources that are available out there. We know that the pandemic hasn't stopped and that there are still many facets of your program being touched by this pandemic, from staffing to children, all of those different pieces. So we want you to know that there are resources around trauma-informed care to support your families, to support you because of how important you are. So if this was a new resource for you, we're hoping that you are able to find a way to kind of infuse it either into your staff training or to a staff workshop, so that they also are aware of these different strategies and can start using them as well. So the next part of our workshop today is around children and their achievements. Often we're concerned about academic achievements, and here we are in this pandemic and handling virtual classrooms and just new ways of involving families. And we want all children to be successful all the way around. So there's a term called soft skills as compared to hard skills. Has anyone heard this term soft skills? A simple yes or no in the chat. Yes, Erica, thank you. Nope. So in comparison, they categorize hard skills as something that is easy to kind of see and easy to measure, like reading. You can measure whether or not a child is able to read. Or math, you can measure how strong a child is in math because they're very concrete or hard skills. Computer skills, science, those are hard skills. But we all know as early childhood educators that the soft skills are just as important as those academic hard skills. So some soft skills include pretend play, purposeful play, regular sharing of thought, conversation, teamwork and collaboration. Those aren't as easy to measure, but they are all very important.
Sharing, teamwork.
Soft skills may be harder to quantify, but they've shown to help how children build their own resilience. It's important that early childhood settings are safe, trauma-sensitive spaces where teachers support children in creating positive self-identities and relationships. So there are several different resources on creating these trauma-sensitive environments. And the best thing I can do is share those with you, but it's always so much fun when you guys get to go in and actually dig into that resource and pull out what's going to be helpful to you. So for the next 12 minutes, everyone's going to be assigned into a group. There are 5 different resources on this screen. When you're in your breakout room will have a number. Whatever number your room is, that's the slide you're going to use. Let me show you what I mean. Here we are. So this is a Google slide. This Google slide is in the chat box. Holly's going to place it there right now so that when you go into your breakout rooms, you have immediate access to it. The very first slide, slide number 1, the resource is the Early Learning and Care Playbook. So if you're in room 1, this is your slide. You're going to select this link. And you're going to do some research on this particular resource. After you're done, you're going to type in 3 strategies or ideas you pulled from there. How are these strategies or ideas going to support your parent survey results? So you got results back from your parent survey. How can this resource support that data? And then what are some additional thoughts you might have? So the next half of our session, we are going to take a look at parent surveys, how to summarize the data from those parent surveys, what gets turned into CDSS, what it is you keep for your program. So I want to start first with our Google Doc. On there, the first thing is the PowerPoint, and I mentioned that you would have the slides so that you could train your staff on the parent survey, so that's available. But the second one is what I'm going to ask everyone to open up. So this is PAR for parent, DFP for developing family partnership, binder pages. If everyone could open that up. Once you've got it, if you can type "got it" in the chat. Thank you, Daphne. There's Monica, there's Maria. Thank you, thank you. Looks like everyone's able to find it. Great. So this is where we're going to use that annotate feature that we started the morning with. This format should look very familiar. It's the same format for the environment rating scale section we looked at in our last session, and also in the desired results pink pages, or I'm sorry, in the desired results section that we looked at in our very first session together. So I'm going to ask everyone to take a look and use the annotate to star activities that would be most useful for your staff. What are some of these activities that you think would be most useful for your staff? Great, I see stars coming in. Building relationships, completing that summary of findings, making a family tree. Yeah, usually I see a lot around that conference dreams and nightmares section. Preparing for successful conferences. We do provide a free webinar for parent conferences and completing that child developmental progress form. Anyone can join it. It's an hour long. We go over how to have a parent conference, how you prepare for that, and how to complete that child developmental progress form with the child's strengths, what they're working on, and so forth. Great. Ooh, look at all the pretty stamps.
Can you repeat that? Did you say you have a training for parent conferences?
There's a free webinar, yes. So I'm going to go away from this page just for a second. So desired results website. Let's clear the annotations. And underneath training, you're able to see my screen, right? The desired
Yes.
results website? Okay, good. And then webinars. So all of the webinars are free. They all count for professional growth hour through the CA registry. There's webinars on DRDP online, and then special topics DRDP ones. So we have observation and collection. We have frameworks to plan, ask the expert, 4D, summary of findings, parent conferences.
Thank you.
They're available. It's available in English and in Spanish.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We also hold one. Oh, did I already pass? Oh yeah, the DRDP summary of findings. That's what this one is. All right, so we took a look at some of, thank you, Sylvia, I see that in the chat. We took a look at some of those activities that are available to you through the training materials. So you have everything you need in order to do any of those. And again, don't feel like you have to do all of those activities. You know what the needs of your staff are. So choose the activity that's going to be most impactful for your staff at this time. Another resource that's available, there is inside of CECO an entire, launch the poll. You guys can answer the poll for me. There's an entire family engagement toolkit available, Quality Counts California. I'm just wondering if anybody's used that with your staff for professional development. It goes over several different ways to involve families. There's actually 2 modules or 2 different units. There's information and videos very specific to engaging families into your program. So it's inside of CECO. So the desired results parent survey is designed to collect information on how well each program is supporting the 2 desired results geared towards families supporting their children's learning and development, and families achieving their goals for their children also. It provides this uniform way for getting information on the same set of issues from families. It also gives program administrators new insights on how they can improve their program quality. Parent survey data is compiled by site. That is a recommendation. You don't have to do it by site, but many programs do it that way so that they can give site-specific information or data. But the requirement is that it has to be compiled by your contract. So that's what must be done when your consultant comes to visit. The data is used to write those summary of findings and then analyze to determine this nice, big, comprehensive program action plan. So it's a little piece of that program self-evaluation. In order to help your staff understand what this parent survey is, so that when they're being asked questions from families or just want to know what the questions are, some of the activities inside of those binder pages we provide include one that says become familiar with the parent survey. So have your staff go through and look at the questions and find out, oh, that's not the right slide. Have your staff go through and take a look at what makes sense to them. Why are we asking this question? This question surprises me. Or what is it that they still have questions about from that parent survey? Because your teachers, your staff need to know what it is they're asking of families also. There are several different ways to gather your data from your parent surveys. Some are still using paper, some are using electronic ways. I would like everyone to kind of speak or talk together and talk about how you are gathering your parent survey data. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes, 4 minutes in your breakout room. So one of the things I might have forgotten to mention, I think I know I forgot to mention, is that this parent survey cannot be, you can't remove anything from the parent survey. So all of the questions that are on there must go out to all of your family members or families. You can add to the parent survey, but you can't remove anything, just so everyone knows. All right, so what did you discuss? How are we collecting parent surveys?
In our group, in group 1, we all do it by paper.
Everyone's doing it by paper. Great, thank you. Maria says, thank you, Megan, for the idea. Megan, what idea did you give?
So we were just talking about sometimes all you get is a yes, no. Without giving them exactly an idea of something, but just kind of doing like a mini, and as a teacher, we had noticed that. So we did a little mini training session. So just to think about some of the things that we do in the program and think about some of the things we do with the parents. So think about all those things we did with you this year. What feedback do you have on these specific items? So it was just some prompts, but not giving them, you know, an answer.
Correct.
So kind of playing that dance.
Yes, absolutely. Great. So some are still using paper, which is fine. And then some have gone completely electronic and they're using some kind of software. That could be Google Forms, that could be SurveyMonkey. And then with those, all of the calculations are done for you. And you don't have to worry about the tallying or the Microsoft Excel sheets. I don't know about you, but Microsoft Excel sheets are not my strong suit. No matter how many trainings I take.
Tamara, can I share something?
Absolutely.
We're using the Google Forms, and it is working very well. Even, you know, some teachers are old, they want to use the paper version, but I think Google Forms is really good because it translates to many languages.
Yeah.
So it's really good, really good to use, and it saves a lot of time to the teachers on the tally piece.
Absolutely. Also with that Google Translate portion is awesome. Like you said, for many languages, you type the question into your Google search bar and use the Google Translate feature, it'll translate it for you. You don't know if it's 100% accurate. For many families, that's better than nothing, right? They have something to go off of for the different languages. Thank you, Carmen, for sharing that. And then with Google Forms or with SurveyMonkey or one of those electronic, instead of handing families paper, they can scan something like this QR code and complete it, and then it all gets turned in. So it's a great way to go completely paperless, and a great way to reach many families, right? Because the paper forms might be difficult for them to turn back in. Instead, they can just scan and keep going. Anybody else like to share what's going on in their program?
I was just going to share, we use paper, but not for the ease of staff. We're in rural Marin, and so we have really poor very poor Wi-Fi, if at all, and sometimes no cell service. So for our families, if we give them electronic surveys, we get a really poor response rate, and we want to make sure that every parent's voice is counted. So for us, good old fashioned paper is the way to get their responses. So even though it'd be easier, we're sticking with our paper.
Sounds great. If it works, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? It looks like it's working for your families, for your program. Absolutely, keep doing that. There are some group data summary Excel sheets available on the website so that the Excel sheet will calculate everything for you and give you those numbers. You will have to go in and tally. So this sheet is showing you that you put parents, you know, anonymously here, and then just how they responded to question 1, to question 2, to question 3. And then you can have a sheet, you'll get a summary total like this, where it says 37% said very satisfied, 36 said satisfied. So the Excel sheet still helps you with the calculations better than you having to do it by hand, if that's what you like to do. If you need me to show you where that is, just type show me in the chat. If you already know, you can say got it. Here underneath DRDP and PSE, program self-evaluation, there's a parent survey section. And that's where you'll find all of the parent surveys in English, Spanish, Chinese, and Vietnamese. And then here goes those compiled group data summaries that you could use in order to calculate. So CDSS is requiring that parent surveys be distributed 1 time a year. There are many programs to do it more than that, and that's completely fine if you want to do a pre and a post. I think there are some lessons learned after doing the parent survey later in the year. I've heard program directors say, I used to just do it around May because it was a checklist item. I have to do a parent survey, let me get it out, let me get it back. But they had learned over the years that it made more sense for them to put it out earlier. So they would put it out in November or January so that the results came back to them. They could show the families that what their voice was heard, and that they made changes to the program because of what came through from the survey. So those are just some lessons learned that you might have to, you know, go through to figure out what's the best time of year for your program. And if anyone has a story they'd like to add about what they figured out, go ahead, we can share that now.
Tamara, as I mentioned that we're using the Google form, and some parents, because there is no way you will know who turned it in or who didn't. So there were the teachers, it was one classroom that she made appointments with the families after class, and she offered 2 Chromebooks. So they were able to just fill out the survey right there.
Oh, nice. It's a nice way to support families in being able to complete it and still be anonymous about what the information that they're sharing. Great,
Yes.
thank you. So another part is that getting those surveys back, so this kind of ties in, Carmen, getting the surveys back is really important. If you put out 100 surveys and you only got 3 back, then it's time to find a new way to put out surveys. The goal is to get information from families, and possibly the way that it's being distributed, right? Like Carmen said, might not be conducive for all families, or like Daphne said, doing something electronic doesn't work for our families. So you want to get back as many as you can, right? 100% is absolutely awesome. 90% is great. But if you only got 10% back, then we want to go back to the drawing board and figure out a new plan. And just think or support your teachers and remind them that good strategies for getting them back does not include punishing children. So this class gets a party, this class gets this, because of what families are doing. So just encouraging your families to find other ways to support or reward families for turning in those instead of the children. So completing your parent survey, there's an entire activity there. It's just the same thing. I'm going to pull out a key finding. I'm going to say what we're going to do about it. Here goes some sample data that might come from your parent survey. And I remember being in a child care program, and I promise this question always got answered in a way that I felt like, what do you mean? We do this all the time. So do you feel like you have enough information on what you can do to help your child learn and develop? And more often than not, I would get nope. Even though I felt as if I was providing that information to families. Is anyone else having this kind of similar? I see heads shaking, Daphne saying yes, Maria saying yes. So when that happened, what I realized in my own kind of internal thought process was that how I am providing the information is not translating to my families as it's information about how your child learns and develops. So this is one of my favorite slides ever. There is often more than one way to do something. So I may be providing it to my families this way, but they don't see it the way I think I am promoting or putting it out there, right? 6 + 3 is 9, but so is 5 + 4. So I got to figure out my 5 + 4 method, my 6 + 3 method, right? All of those to get to 9, not just one singular way. So families may have not connected that my family meeting was a way to get involved with the program. So I need to be really clear about that and put it out there in a way that everyone sees it. And I think, I can't remember who it was, someone said they went through the questions with, it was Megan who said, we'll provide some prompts. Remember, we did this part back in January. Remember, we did this. And just reminding them of all of the ways you are meeting what's on the parent survey, or having some kind of bulletin board up that's very clear and has the same language from the parent survey.
I really appreciate Megan's idea, because what I've noticed over the past several years is, depending on when I do my survey, I will get different results there. So I used to do it later in the year until I took this training. And so this year I I bumped it up. But if I do it like after after our parent conferences, I don't get this result on here. You know, because it's like parents feel like, oh, we just had that parent teacher conference and you gave me all this stuff.
Yep.
But I did mine in at the beginning of January, kind of coming off that break. And so I think parents were like, I don't know, nothing. So framing it with the way that Megan talked about seems like, I mean, why didn't I think of that? Thank you so much for sharing that idea. That's brilliant. Like, this is a summary of what we've done this first semester.
Yeah.
And then we want your reflection on what that is, just to kind of give a little refresh.
Very nice. And then here are some things to consider as you are going over the data and the data's coming back to you. So I'm just going to pause here, and then you can use the stamp and stamp the ones that stand out to you or speak to you. This is our last breakout room of our workshop. There are some other things to think about. Parent survey and parent conferences go hand in hand. And I heard Daphne mention how after her parent conferences, she gave out her parent surveys because everything was connected. The other kind of reflection for administrators is to think about, how am I supporting my staff in hosting these parent conferences? So here are 3 different questions that I'd like you to discuss in your breakout. There we go. I'm thinking about how training is happening around conducting parent conferences, if there are any guidelines for supporting your staff around providing feedback to your staff before or after or during parent conferences so that they are successful with it. So those are the 3 questions. I typed them into the chat box since the slide wants to keep moving. And you will be in your chat box, in your breakout rooms for the next 7 minutes. When we come back, I will ask people to share, and I'll come around and visit this slide. Who would like to share if there were any ahas or epiphanies about these questions, things that kind of made you think of?
I have one thing that I want to share. I didn't share it with my group, but it just popped into my head. My staff and I, we participate with the Marin Quality Counts, and we have a coach that comes, and we've been working on and have been using Inclusion Works. And there was a whole section in Inclusion Works about challenging parent-teacher conferences, or ones that might feel like, well, we're talking about really sensitive information. And something that one of their strategies was, if you think that this might be a challenging parent-teacher conference, to invite the parent to have another adult with them. And I had a child that we saw some red flags, and we were talking with the family, you know, over time, little baby steps, like, this is what we noticed, this is what we noticed, this is what we noticed. Then it came time for the parent conference, and we, no, I'm sorry. We had an SST meeting, and the parent was like, not okay with what was happening. She was like walking around it was on Zoom, and which is not a great way, but this was last year, and she was walking around, and we could tell that she was anxious. Well, then I had this training, and I was like, she needed support. Like, our teachers need support, but our parents also need support, especially for these difficult conversations. So when we had another meeting with her, we talked with her first. And so we had a family advocate there with her. And we also invited her to bring her partner. And it was a totally different meeting. I've had parents tell me over years, they're like, I'm always nervous for parent-teacher conferences, even though their child has no developmental delays, and, you know, we're just gonna check in and there's not really anything surprising. They're still nervous. And then that can kind of like set the whole energy off. So that was my, like, when I read that and we talked about it in the book, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was a huge aha for me. And it made a huge difference in all of our subsequent meetings with that parent. She felt comfortable and supported. And so we were able to have a more open and a more beneficial conversation about her child.
That is great. Thank you, Daphne, for sharing that. That's a great strategy. Supporting your families also. Yep. Anyone else?
Tamara, I'll jump in real quick and speak for my group. I had just written down that they had some really good effective leadership practices that they did around training. So lots of providing a variety of opportunities for them to train. So small group settings, getting set up with a mentor, virtual trainings, you know, providing a variety. And then they talked about sitting down with the teachers one-on-one and really reflecting on the data. So for a leader to take the time to sit down with a teacher and look at something one-on-one, very specific for their classroom, I thought was a fantastic leadership strategy. So great conversation in our group.
Beautiful. And sometimes it just takes the thinking through of it, right? There's so many things on everyone's plate or on your checklist. But to think through supporting not only my staff, but supporting families, that's just because they're not, you know, rocket science ideas. They're simple, but I just have to think through it first and figure out what's going to be supportive. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. So in those binder pages, there is a document. You can use this handout to support staff as they are hosting family conferences, and it gives a nice list of preparing for a successful conference. That's already in those binder pages that everybody has. So we are coming to the end, and we usually end all of our webinars the same way, thinking about how are we going to take this back to our agency. So it's time to think about what is it, or how are you going to use the information that we've received today. And then on the screen are just a couple of ideas. How are you going to distribute and collect, or how are you planning to do that? Also, are you providing PLCs or COPs around trauma-sensitive practices and using one of those new resources we started with, or starting a COP using that CECO modules about the family engagement or about the trauma-informed care? Contact CIBC for consultation. So CIBC was one of those resources, and they will do consultation with staff and with your program around children who may be exhibiting behaviors and your staff aren't sure how to work with that. And there's no fee. They don't charge for that at all. That's a free service. But how are you going to use what you've learned today? Thank you all so much for participating in that Mentimeter poll. Are there any last questions before we say have a wonderful day? It went by really fast this morning. Holy smokes. Yeah, everybody's like, yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad it's not just me. I was like, oh my, that was quick. So just like I end all of them, I'm going to invite everyone to turn on their cameras, unmute their line, the count of 3. We're all going to say, have a great Tuesday. Corny joke. 1, 2, 3. Have a great
Have a great Tuesday.